Hello world. Today I will be talking about what it's like to live in a Chinese suburb. Now, more specifically, what it's like to live in a suburb in Shanghai, which might be different than other Chinese suburbs. I'm going to contrast with my life of living in a Canadian suburb, even in an Egyptian suburb, and other places I've lived around, more metropolitan areas, downtown areas, and just contrast a living experience. I have done a video on inside the Chinese housing community, and this is more going to be about the life outside of it, but I will be touching on that as well. Starting off, I'll cover the community briefly. There's nothing spectacular inside the community. What I mean is there's no shops, there's no errands you can run inside the community. You'd have to go outside for that. Inside the community, it is only houses, the garden area. There's some places you can sit. You'll see some people playing cards. And underground would be all the parking. So there's no street parking there. So it's a nice walkable community, but there's not that much to do in it unless you want to take a walk. Now, outside and around the community is the main focus of this and what is in your general vicinity. Right next to home, I do not have a mall or mega shopping center, but they are not that far away. However, when I leave from one exit, side exit, I can walk 5, 10 minutes. Everything is in range from there. There's grocery stores, general farmers markets, wet markets. There's a KFC, a lot of different food options, stuff like that, snack shops. So for your daily life and errands, there's enough next to you. On top of that, if you need anything else, we have phone stores, clothing shops, but if you do require some specialty items, Chinese online shops are great. The delivery is great. It's fast, it's efficient. If you want to order food, fast, efficient. If you want to order things that you don't find in the shops around you, maybe foreign goods, whatever it may be, you can order all online. In fact, if you want to just live at home and never exit the community, order everything online, you can absolutely do that. Would not recommend. All that to say is your daily necessities are covered. You have pharmacies, you have banks, you have barbers. You won't have to worry about any of that. Now, if you're in a health crisis or you need to get to a hospital, I think there are some smaller clinics around, but I would definitely recommend going to a larger one. There's a huge hospital about 15, 20 minutes drive away. Very easy to take a taxi or DD there. Public hospital, very great, very efficient. So after we covered our daily necessities, we're going to cover like what it's like for life outside of the basics. And you can see here I'm biking. I'm going to cover that in hobbies, things you might like to do. So let's say you like to bike. It's a much better option than downtown, much better option than a lot of suburbs I've lived in because, as you can see here, they have separated bike lanes in a lot of places, and it's very safe to bike. In Shanghai, I tend to feel safer than when I was biking back in Canada because they have a lot of dedicated bike lanes and the drivers are used to seeing bikes on the road, so they're not indignant with the idea that someone would dare ride a bike instead of a car. So if you have a hobby of biking, jogging, or just walking around, it's great for that because it's pretty walkable. There's a lot of good sidewalks, good bike trails, good running trails as well as a lot of parks. There's botanical gardens. There's the Gunfeling Park not too far away as well. There's the Sheshan Hill, which is people come to hike. Well, if you have outdoor hobbies like hiking, walking, and biking, it's definitely a better option than living in the city or downtown Shanghai. Also, it could be compared with Canadian suburbs as you're closer to trails and other places to walk. So I'd say they kind of go tit for tat on that. Hobby category for outdoor hobbies, yeah, it's much better than living in a city or even downtown Shanghai. I would say it's similar to generally suburbs. You have more options if you want to take a ball outside and kick it. You can play tennis. There's a lot of golf courses and such around. So for outdoor sports and activities, I would definitely say it is a plus. Now, if I want to go to the mall, I love Chinese malls because there's usually so much to do, so many good food options in and around them, and there's entertainment in them too. Chinese malls tend to function also as, mini entertainment complexes. They always got their cinemas, they always have sometimes KTV or karaoke booths. A lot of fun. If you have kids, you can always find entertainment for them at the mall. So this is not quite a con, but it is a little further than living right next to it. This might not go for everyone in the Shanghai suburbs, but for me, I live a little bit away from the mall. Now, it's not unbearably so. I don't need a car to get around. So it takes about 30 minutes on bicycle. That's me biking, not booking it. If you had an e-bike, you could probably make that a bit faster. You might be able to do it in 15 to 20, depending on the license and the speed category of your e-bike. And there are different requirements for that. If you had a car, you could probably get there in 10 minutes because traffic and stuff. It might take you more depending on the traffic. Traffic's not bad, but there are a lot of red lights around the way. Now, if you take the bus, which actually is very close to my home, I just have to walk down the street and hop on the bus. Again, it's probably going to take a total of 20 minutes if you time it right. So the mall is not so inconvenient to get to. It's not so out of the way that I'm like, oh my God, it's an excursion. But it's not like having it within a 5 or 10-minute walk. I was almost thinking to say if you wanted more cafe culture and to wander around, you might need to go downtown. But actually, if you're willing to explore a little bit, there are quite a few cafes, coffee shops, not just in the neighborhood itself, but in the surrounding areas. So if you go to Guofeling Park, you can find a lot of cafes, restaurants, chill spots, and they're often indoors and outdoors. So it's kind of whatever floats your boat. China has this fusion of something like a library, bookstore, and cafe. You'll see quite a few. More throughout Shanghai, but even out here you can find some, as well as China has some really good libraries, even smaller libraries, not just the large downtown ones you find in a lot of other cities. So there's plenty to do indoors as well. Now, for those out there wondering about the nightlife scene, I'm not really your guy to explain this, but to summarize it quick, downtown is going to be where the vibrant nightlife is. The bar streets, the clubs, they're all going to be pretty central. If you're looking for that Shanghai crazy night out, again, you gotta be in downtown Shanghai. Out here, you might get a mixture of some KTV places, late night street food. You got quite a big student community here, thanks to all the universities nearby. So you could enjoy that. But if you actually wanted to go out for one of those nights out on the Shanghai town, for myself, I'd have to get to the subway, either take an e-bike there, park it there, take the subway downtown. If the event finished late, you'd most likely have to take a taxi or DD back. For Canadians in Toronto, it would be like coming back from Toronto to Mississauga or Oakville. It is certainly doable. It might not be like walking out of the event or the party you went to and stumbling home or a 5 minute or 10-minute taxi ride home, but if you want it that bad, you can certainly make it happen. Now, coming away from hobbies and such is how you can actually get around. So, number one way to get around is your feet. This will get you to all the basics, some good walks, some good hikes, parks, but you have to be willing to walk. The further you're willing to walk, the more you're going to be able to reach. Now, all that can essentially be cut in half, if not more, if you're willing to bike. If you tried to walk to the mall I mentioned earlier, it might take you 1.5 hours, maybe even 1 hour, 40, 50 minutes, depending on your speed. On a bike, you could do it easily 30, 40 minutes if you're going slower. And in the other direction, there's a great mall as well. It would take you about 50 minutes on a bicycle. Now, all that is further reduced if you own an e-bike. E-bikes are super popular in China. They're not that hard to get. You do need a license for ones that go over certain speeds and have more than just that pedal assist going on. Also, you could use the bus. Now, I know buses are not popular with a lot of people, but the bus system here works very well, and it connects directly to the subway. So the mall I mentioned earlier, and fantastic thing about how China structures its infrastructure, is above many of the subway stations or adjacent to them are malls. So you don't get out usually in the middle of nowhere. So I have a station directly at that mall I was saying. So that leaves the subway a 20-minute bus ride or a 30-minute bike ride away. Now, again, if you're using an e-bike, you can roll up to the station and then take the subway downtown. So transport options are generally going to be that. Either you have your own car, you use an e-bike, you use a bicycle, you walk, or you take the bus. And within Chongqing, they have kind of another option. You have a tram. Now, this isn't directly next to me, but it does cover some of the larger suburban areas to get around Songjiang itself. Also, if all other options fail, you can always take Didi. You can take a taxi. Now, I would definitely recommend public transportation. Other than that, however, it is still very affordable here in China. Now, of course, it's not going to be as walkable as downtown or even as good on getting around on the subway, but it is quite convenient, especially if I compare it with western suburbs I've lived in. The biking is generally safer and there are more options for public transport. Also, if you want to do any ride hailing, whether it's taxi, Didi, it is at least affordable. In the West, it can be prohibitively expensive. Now, if I switch that over to my experience in the Middle East and Egypt, suburbs, it was fully car dependent as well. Now, I guess the only silver lining there is Ubers are very cheap to get around, but it's sad that it is your only option, or at least it was for me. Now, let's talk about the fact that I live in Shanghai. What if I actually want to go to downtown Shanghai? Um, it's not super convenient if I want to do it on a daily basis. Now, if you lived in the suburbs and lived closer to a subway station, it would be pretty easy. You just go to the subway, you ride it until you get to your destination, make any of the needed interchanges. That's it. However, I personally have to either take a DD, a bus, a bike, or e-bike to the subway station. Do I find it inconvenient myself? No, because I'm not going downtown every day. And if you want to be downtown every day, maybe you should get a place downtown. However, you are going to make some huge trade offs. Downtown property prices are way more expensive for way less space. So, if you want more space, you're probably going to have to choose a suburb. If you want less congestion, you're probably going to have to choose a suburb. If you want less people around, you might have to choose a suburb. Now, a couple of rapid fire points for foreigners if they're planning to live outside of the downtown or further away, like myself. You will be a little bit isolated from the international community. There are foreigners out here, but there's a lot less of them. You'll also get noticed a lot more. So the staring might get to you a bit more. In downtown, people are more used to seeing foreigners, so they barely bat an eye when they see you. So there are trade-offs. It really depends what you're looking at from life. A lot of the younger people like to be in the thick of it in Shanghai, and as they get a little bit older, they might move out of the city center. These were just some of my scattered thoughts as I biked around my own neighborhood, and I personally like the Shanghai suburbs. I find it quite convenient and comfortable to live. Let me know if you have any more questions on Shanghai, and I hope you enjoyed. Peace.